Hi, and welcome today to Celebrity Customer Experience Riffs with me, Jill Raff, where we riff on anything and everything from employee experience to customer experience, because I guarantee you, your employee experience will be your leading indicator of your customer experience. When you create this connection culture within your business, one where you're creating genuine relationships, connections, and accountability, a big problem happening today, you can always count on your employees delivering that celebrity customer experience to your paying customers. I want to welcome everyone for joining us today. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for taking your time to do that. I want to acknowledge everyone who's investing their time to learn more about employee experience and customer experience and how to explore those two to understand why they are intertwined, why they are intrinsically connected and inseparable. So thank you. I appreciate your time. I know all of us, that's our biggest resource. So be sure to share this with anyone who you know may benefit, and be sure to comment, join our conversation. I'm excited about our guest today. You can join our conversation through the comments. I will see them and post them into our live show today. So thank you for that. And we'll, with no further ado, today we are going to be talking about and asking the question, do you really know what your customers want? Do you really know? I think we all think we know, right? But do we really know? So we're going to be discussing that today. And I'm going to bring my guest on, Daudi Mugabi. Thank you for joining.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here, Jill.
Thank you. Thank you. So today, as I said, we have Daudi, who's a customer experience enthusiast with over 15 years of marketing experience. His mission is to help businesses create amazing experiences that keep their customers coming back for more. He's passionate about all things customer related and loves nothing more than to see a happy customer. Daudi is also a podcast host of Business Mike, so be sure to check that out. He helps businesses figure out ways to keep their customers coming back for more without ever having to worry about your competition. Now, isn't that what every business owner and manager wants, right? So let's dive right in and understand, what is it that your customers really want? Because if you don't know this first, you will never be able to deliver on it. So it's a really important topic. And thank you, Daudi, for joining me to talk about this and go into detail.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, and this is a very pertinent topic, one that all of us CX professionals and experts are looking to unpeel and learn more about. It's a continuous journey of learning, and I don't think any one of us can truly claim that we know 100% what our customers want. We just try and learn more and more every day.
I agree. Especially, we've all learned, I think, if nothing else, the pandemic taught us that we are in an ever-changing world. We are in whiplash speed change and technology, intelligence. I mean, the world is changing so rapidly that we have to keep up. So before we dive into that topic, I always like to learn a little bit more and share with our audience about my guests. So, Daudi, could you tell us a little bit, in short, kind of your backstory, your journey into CX, and what was it that attracted you to customer experience? How did you get involved in this industry?
Right. Well, my very first job when I was about 18 years old, my dad had a friend that used to own a telecommunications company. And so he told him, I have a son of mine, just give him something to do. I don't want him to sit at home idle. And so my very first job was answering the calls, the phone lines, and just picking information and passing it on to the relevant parties. And from that moment on, I got to interact with customers and learn how sophisticated they are. Because on a good day, they're very pleasant. On the bad day, when the network is down, you get to see the other side and learn how to interact with them in a cordial way. Later on, I got into marketing. So That was the side that's selling the business now. And it was all about bringing customers in at any cost, generating leads. So the reason why I want to talk about what customers want is, at the time, the organization I was working with didn't necessarily find out what exactly their customers wanted. Internet was a new thing in Uganda, where I'm based. And so they figured, we have internet, very few people are offering it, they'll come. And that was the mindset. And so over
Mm.
time, I started realizing, you know what? More and more entrants, more people selling internet are coming in. So we have to do more than just show a business card and people come running. Now the nuances started coming in. It wasn't about the fact that you have internet. It was how you respond to a crisis when the internet is down. How do your staff interact with the customers? And that slowly tuned my mind to think, oh, okay, as much as we're doing marketing, there is something about the customer here. And about 2 years ago, I then decided to learn more about customer experience and educate myself. And like you said, I have a podcast. I leverage that podcast to start interviewing professionals in the field of customer experience. And each and every week, I learn a thing or two about customer experience from various perspectives. So that's my journey in a nutshell, really.
I love it. And I thank
Yeah.
you today for having me on as your guest in your
Yes.
podcast. So that was enjoyable. Gosh, so an interesting comment you made of, these the first internet companies, or the first of anything on the scene in an industry. They think, oh, we're the only ones. We don't have to worry
Yeah.
about the customers. They're just, and I I just find that so amazing, right? The disconnect that they think, how do we deliver this service, this product, if you're not thinking about your customers? That's what's always so amazing to me. So why then would you say that the customer experience is so important in all this?
Well, at the end of the day, business boils down to one simple thing. You give a customer something of value in exchange for money, and you want to repeat that as many times as you can. And in order to do that, you basically got to find out what it is that makes the customer tick. What are you offering them beyond the surface level value, especially in today's economy where there's so many people doing similar things? The monopoly is a few and far in between. So,
Mm,
customer experience is critical in the sense that you want to know who you're interacting with, you want to understand them on a deep level, to the extent that they feel like you're not just a thing or an entity. The organization morphs into a being, if I can use that word, a being that they can resonate with, that they trust and love, that they can vouch for. I'll just give a simple example of a fast food restaurant that is popular here in Uganda. It's called CJ's, and their customer service is it's exceptional. And one day, a customer claimed that she was served a milkshake with a rat inside. So she took a picture at her residence with a rat in the milkshake and said, "This is what I got from that restaurant." And I was surprised that the social media defense that came to this organization, everybody stood behind them and said, there is no way that has happened. This is clearly someone just trying to um, make a
mm,
killing of a lawsuit or something like that. So that woke up the other organizations in our country in terms of, oh, this is what good customer experience can do. Even when a scenario like this comes about, people will come to your defense. And I love and always tell that story to anyone who cares to listen, because it's a very simple example of how treating your customers right can yield uh, very, very many benefits to you. And funnily enough, their business went up from an incident where someone claimed there was a rat in the milkshake. Their
I
business just went
love
up
it.
from that. Yeah.
Ah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. That is a great story. Really highlights and illustrates the value of reviews, how important it is,
Yeah.
and to give that great experience so that your customers will want to go online and support you when someone, in this case, terribly tried to take advantage of a situation.
Mm.
People knew it was ridiculous. And from not just because, like, there's no way, I mean, even if you think about logistics of making a steak,
Exactly.
right? There's no way you could actually have a whole animal and it just
Yeah,
wouldn't work anyway. So
exactly.
that wasn't very smart. But besides that, the fact that they themselves have had great experiences with this company to know that that wasn't true, beyond the fact that logistically it couldn't have happened. But so that is where it's really, really important, and where we want our customers to become our advocates as well
Hmm.
as our employees. So one of the things we talked about on your podcast today was um, that my tagline is turning employees into advocates and customer magnets. So when we turn our customers, our internal customers, the employees, and our external customers into advocates, then half of the marketing, the advertising, the expense is gone. More than half. You're letting the street talk, right? It's the word on the street, it's the social proof that's going to have much more power anyway. So I love that. And just one more thing I want to touch on, what you defined a transaction, an exchange of money for goods or services. So that's something that I talk about a lot, because I also believe, and actually have a book somewhere around here, and it's this particular book is actually a collaborative book, but my section and my title is called "Transforming Transactions into Interactions,"
Directions.
because
Mm.
I believe that a transaction is what you described. It's an exchange of money for goods and services. But I think when we talk about experience, right, we talked about why is experience so important. It's transforming that basic transaction of an exchange of money to to an interaction, which is something that occurs that affects a human being's emotional center, that they're touched in some way, that their human side is brought out, and that there's some connection between person to person. And so when we create that experience, we're taking that transaction and we're making it into an interaction, which is the beginning of creating that relationship with your customers. And so I want to encourage people to transform the transaction into interactions so that you create those relationships as the ones that you talked about at CJ's, where your people are going to come to your defense and support of you no matter what. So
Yeah,
that's
I love what you said, and my interpretation of that is a couple that wants the long term goal to be a long, fruitful relationship. The transaction, like you said, is well, I'm the boyfriend, you're the
mm,
girlfriend, so I do this, you do that, and it's plain and simple, and that's it. But for it to develop into something more meaningful, you have to go beyond the simple exchanges in a relationship and get to know one another on an intimate level, and that strengthens the bond and builds a much more long lasting relationship.
mm, great. That's beautiful. I love that. Everyone can relate to that universally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is perfect. So, Dowdy, I want to just move for a minute to kind of some highlights and insights from you on your podcast. Your podcast, Business Mike, and um, could you share with us from your various podcast guests what would be the two top pressing problems you're seeing that you're hearing from your guests that are you're hearing the same things kind of pop up over and over and over? What would be the two top pressing problems whereby if people focused on the experience, that it would solve that problem or at least make a difference, create a dent?
Right. Well, the first one is the one we spoke about with you today, which was the employee experience. A lot of the focus tends to be on the customer side, and not much attention is given to the internal customers, who are very, very important, because before you even sell anything, the first person you hire is your employee. So you have them before you even have the customer. It's puzzling as to how they're neglected for the customer, and yet you brought them on board first. That's very strange. So that's one of the issues that comes up. in terms of paying attention to and nurturing in order to have a good customer experience. And the other one would be the explaining from now the professional side of what exactly it means to give a customer experience that is worthwhile to the board. In other words, from the experience point of view, the top level management don't necessarily get to appreciate what's happening on the ground, and so they
Mm,
don't interact with the customers on a day-to-day basis. Therefore, they don't get to appreciate and experience what it is that they're contributing to the world. And so most of the guests that I have are trying to tackle this problem of how do we convince the top level management in terms of dollars and cents why this actually matters, because it's looked at as something that's lovey-dovey, touchy-feely. It's not real. It's just nicely, and that's the perception. So I would say those are the two issues that tend to come up in my podcast interviews.
yeah, isn't it amazing that we have leadership at such a high level and they've worked to get there? They've had to do so much to be at that level. How could they have missed what,
Hmm.
in my opinion, like, granted, I'm an EX person, but it's common sense. Like, it's common, like, it's, it seems so basic, right? It is pretty amazing to me how you can be focused on the money coming in, but if you don't think about your money going out towards your employees, and you're going to be spending a lot more money with turnover if your employees are not happy and if they don't feel their voices heard and if they're not listened to, if they're not incorporated in your decision making, in the building of your culture and all of those things. It's pretty daunting. It's pretty amazing to me,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just tie it back to the relationship example that I gave. That's the equivalent of wanting all the love in the world, but you don't even know the name of your partner. That's very strange. There's just no way
Mm,
that would work. You have no clue about this person, but you want all the love. It makes no sense at all.
that's great. I
Mm,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and the name. I mean, I know if it's a huge company, of course you can't, if you're right, if you're in the C-suite or whatever, there's no way you can know everyone's name. But one of the things, so I'm bringing a story. My father, may he rest in peace. I lost him many, many years ago, but he really was my mentor in this realm of business. And I have interviewed many people who worked for him since, and it is incredible because the thing that every single person without fail talks about and says it up front early on is, your dad would look me straight in the eyes and he would ask about my family by name. He knew the name of my kids. He knew where they
Mm,
were going to college. Like, and he would specifically take interest and know them. And people's names are the most beautiful, most important word in the language they speak, regardless of what that language is. And it's such a small detail. And I just really want to encourage people, one simple takeaway. And I know people have heard it a million times, and yet it's not being implemented, because I know as a customer, when I go places, no one hardly ever uses my name. It is such a
mm,
simple strategy to use people's name. It recognizes them. There's a sense of acknowledgement. There's actually dopamine. There's actually something that triggers our our brains and our cells when we hear our names. So again, a simple thing, and thank you for bringing that beautiful analogy, because it is something that's very real that everyone can relate to. So I want to move to kind of the second part of that question. And let's talk a little bit about the CX community, the customer
mhm.
experience community at large, um, its growth, where are we headed? What do you think's going on in the future? I'll give kind of a little bit of my insight, but I'm curious to hear what you think about that from the CX professionals' point of view, as well as from the customers.
Right. Well, we're living in good times as far as I'm concerned. Thanks to the lockdown and COVID, it had its problems and disadvantages. But one
Mm,
of the few good things that came out of it was a wake up call for organizations and businesses to start paying attention to their customers, because for the first time it became about retention and not necessarily growth. Most of the focus, with the exception of a few companies, was retention of customers, at least here in the African market. So
mm,
companies had to find ways of telling their customers who are struggling to make ends meet to stick with them. They had to have a very good reason as to why money should leave their pockets and flow
mm,
into theirs. And one of the best ways to do that was to uh, offer and find ways of delivering a much better customer experience. If an organization didn't have any program in place, they quickly found a way to establish one. And so that led to a growth in the number of CX professions and communities. And where we are today, we're seeing quite a number of them coming up and growing. And what I love about this is I've interacted with many people on various continents, and there is a sense of community with them, in that they're more than happy to help one another. It's not a competition. I don't get that feeling.
mm,
It's,
mhm.
how can I help you deliver a better experience? I'm happy to share what I've learned with you. And this is what's happening here. And it's quite interesting, because a few other professions have that level of what we call Ubuntu, or helping one another, goodwill, if I
Mm,
could so say.
Ubuntu.
And
I like
yeah, yeah, it's a South African word for, I think, belonging or being one with one another. So I see that a lot in our CX community. And personally, I'm working with a few colleagues here to start up our first association in Uganda for customer experience professionals. And funny enough, it's Kenya that's helping us do this. So the Kenyans
that.
said, we have one. We're happy to help you from day one. How do you set it up? How do you grow it?
Fantastic.
So it's very, very interesting. And I think the future, at least as far as customer experience goes, it's going to be bright, certainly.
Yeah, I love that, and I agree 100% over here
Mm.
in the States as well. It's a very, a relatively smaller um, industry, and everybody really supports one another. Before I forget, though, how do you spell Ubuntu? I love that.
Oh, it's the way you hear it. That's
See,
Ubuntu.
I'm just gonna post that actually on the if I can get this to, there we go. Okay, so it posted on Facebook and on YouTube. I wonder why it's not posted on LinkedIn, but oh, maybe I don't know. Hopefully it will. It's posted there and I didn't see it. That's really wonderful. And it means, you said it means like belonging. And what was the other
Yeah.
term you used?
Being as one, sharing in a community.
Mm,
Your problem is my problem, like the kind of thing.
I love it. Um, So yeah, we have the same experience here, and similarly, so I've been asked to participate a few times in groups with other CX professionals in CX conferences, and that's where I'm going to just add one little piece. But the idea is, we're giving our time because we believe so passionately in the purpose and the cause of this, and we don't see each other similar, like what you said. We don't see each other as competitors, but we're all in this together, and we share ideas, and I love that. The one thing I would just add that I see going on here is the combination of bringing in EX with
Mhm.
the CX conferences. That was never done before. So I think that's a really exciting sign of the future, that we're seeing this combination, this recognition that everything you said for customer experience and about customers, for me, it's just like echoes. You could replace the word employee for it. So it's exactly the same. And that just the recognition that they are intrinsically connected. And as I started at the top of the show, as we round it up, that you're seeing conventions, conferences, businesses, corporate meetings, they're talking about not just CX, but EX and CX together in the same sentence, in the same paragraph, in the same conference. So that's super exciting for me. Well, we're at the end of our time. I want to thank you so much. Do you have a quick takeaway that you would maybe share with someone on why and how to get what's important for customers?
Yes, yes. My quick takeaway would be, if you run a business or if you're an employee in a business, try as much as possible to walk in your customer's shoes. And I'll just give an example. If you work for a company that, say, sells appliances, and your appliance, maybe you own one and it has a problem, but you know George in IT, don't call George in IT just because you have his number and he can solve your problem quickly. Dial the landline of your organization, send an email, go through the system, and see what it is that your customers go through. And that way you appreciate and see firsthand whether or not you're putting your best foot forward as an organization. And that would be my takeaway.
Brilliant. Fantastic takeaway. It's kind of like undercover boss. Everyone needs to do that. I know
Yeah.
Tony Hsieh was famous for that, calling into Zappos when they first started and asking for pizza. And it was just a shoe company, right? So he wanted to see how they responded on their feet. And brilliant. That is such a great suggestion. I don't think many people do that at all. So a fantastic
No.
takeaway. Thank you, Daudi. If you want to reach him, I have put his LinkedIn address, his URL up here. His name, Daudi with a hyphen, Mugabi. So please be in touch with him. Feel free to be in touch with me. And if you're watching this through the replay, be sure to comment and tag Daudi and myself in the conversation so we can keep the conversation going. And thank you for helping me continue this conversation and bringing in your insights. It's a pleasure to speak to you today.
Thank you for having me, Jill. I value such conversations, and hopefully, the many more to come. We have to spread the word out there.
We do. So hang on with me 1 minute as I wrap up. Great conversation, great takeaways. I think we can all relate to that. So, everyone, I hope that you benefited from today. Take some of those couple of suggestions, implement them today, and get back to me. Let me know what impact they had. What was the reaction from your customers? What was the reaction from your employees? I think you will see a difference without a doubt. Try some of those things. Go back and listen to the recording again if you missed any of that. Thank you again for joining today in Celebrity Customer Experience, and I look forward to seeing you next time.